A little while ago I made a video about why I love Guild Wars 2, and in it I talked about numerous aspects of the game that I enjoy, and one of those was movement. In this video I want to spend a bit of time thinking about that topic in specific. So movement. It's kind of important really, not just in video games but in life in general. How else am I going to get my chunky butt to and from places of importance, like the supermarket and the other supermarket? Yeah, I know, I'm fancy, what can I say? It's also something we take for granted. We should probably be grateful if we still have full movement, because some people don't and life is harder for it, and those people deserve our support and empathy. So leave those PIP payments alone, Starmer, you cunt. The ability to move gives us freedom, even if it is only to go to the supermarket to pick up some pate.
You are a big posh sod with plums in your mouth.
Anyway. So not only does it provide us freedom, it can also feel enjoyable to do it. People go for runs or cycle. I mean, not me obviously, but people do, and they do enjoy it. I mean, I can just about remember being a kid all those years ago and being full of energy and just charging about, and it was fun. It is fun to go fast. It doesn't have to be under your own peasant legs. You can drive a car or ride a plane. I remember a friend of mine used to have a Jaguar XKR and being pinned back into the seat as it pulled off at a bazillion miles an hour. Movement can trigger a hormonal response within our body, releasing adrenaline and dopamine. People throw themselves out of planes and shit just to feel alive.
Fancy a quick dip, chaps? McNuggets away!
I have been borderline obsessed with this advert my entire fucking life. I guess it's a product of growing up being a child of consumerism in the 80s and 90s, but I am cursed to carry this McDonald's advert in my mind for the rest of my fucking life. Movement is beneficial to our health, keeping our muscles supple and our circulation pumping. Not that long ago, I decided to give running a go, which historically I fucking hate because I just can't get my nut around running for enjoyment. But as a fully paid up member of the Fat Fuck Club, I needed to try and lose a bit of weight. I probably hadn't properly run anywhere or for any length of time for about 20 years, and when I did start running, I felt like a fucking alien who inhabited a human body. I'll be honest, it was a particularly unedifying and short-lived affair. With no small amount of shame, as some bendy arsehole in spandex would come blasting past me on their own run while I slopped down the road like a giant sack of shit. But movement can also improve mental health as well by reducing stress and building confidence in yourself, and while I don't particularly enjoy the more strenuous activities, I do love to walk. There is something good about being in motion for thinking about stuff. Just the simple act of moving forward has a sort of positive connotation to it. There is such a thing as walking meditation, concentrating on the mechanical act of walking itself and the sensation of each step in the walking process. I probably do tap into some part of that when I'm walking, as you do sort of get a flow going. But as someone who spends pretty much all his time working looking at a screen and then stops working just to switch computers and look at more screen, walking allows me to go outside, get some fresh air, metaphorically touch grass, listen to a podcast, and more importantly, not look at a screen for a bit. But talking about screens, let's get back to the topic of movement in video games. The way it feels to move around in a video game can go a long way to contributing how much you enjoy that game. Some games like Morrowind perhaps have janky shit movement, but the focus is more on the richness of the story and the world you adventure in. But if you improve the movement, then the game is, well, improved. And while sometimes movement is just an added bonus, sometimes it is the actual focus, where the act of moving is the point and how it feels to traverse through a virtual space, giving us many of those same feelings that we might get from more thrill-seeking activities in the real world. I remember the first time I experienced the movement in Guild Wars 2. Everything felt similar to other MMORPGs I'd played, but it felt good, and I knew I liked it straight away. But I think when I properly appreciated how good it felt to me was when I logged back into World of Warcraft after playing it for a while, and it just felt so incredibly slow. After charging about in Tyria, being back in Azeroth felt practically glacial. And this is coming from someone that genuinely loves the movement in Warcraft. And to compare it to other MMORPGs, which is a genre not usually known for its snappy movement, Guild Wars for me is top of the pile. As I mentioned, WoW is good, but WoW is to some extent a game that I can get through using click to move and can generally deal with most PvE stuff playing with one hand if I wanted to. The mounts are decent and have gotten better in recent years, put a pin in that, but overall it is what I would class as the kind of middle point baseline. Elder Scrolls Online can feel a bit snappier at times, but anyone who has played it knows about the fact that you will glide about on stuff like roofs and ledges, and you are, to my mind, somewhat held back from total freedom because of you and your mount having stamina bars, which is another bugbear of mine, but in this instance and pertaining to the topic at hand, I feel like it acts as a barrier to fun. It might feel good to move, but then I have to slow down because I am out of juice. I understand it for combat. Stamina can play a vital part there in how you engage with combat and your tactics, but when it comes to movement, that shouldn't be a thing in my eyes. Final Fantasy XIV isn't the worst movement, but it doesn't inspire me at all. The fucking chocobo don't feel great, and I just don't feel like movement is what I am enjoying in this game. I mean, it has been a long-running project of mine to play through all of the Final Fantasy XIV expansions, as the game just seems to drag for me, and it isn't like I completely hate it, but it has taken me a few years to finish the base game, and I have had to take a break, as when I did complete the main storyline recently and was excited to hit the first expansion, I was served what feels like 50 more fucking quests before I can get there. So I'll get back to that at some point, and I will get through them all, but stand by for a video on my troubled relationship with Final Fantasy XIV in the future. Star Wars The Old Republic is serviceable but slow and uninspiring. Dungeons and Dragons Online is okay but old and dated. Lost Ark is, well, Lost Ark. There isn't much immersion in top-down isometric movement in the same way as some of these other games. Throne and Liberty is probably a game that starts to come closer to creating a bit more flow with its animal forms, but still doesn't totally hit the mark for me. I'm thinking of revisiting the game for another video after a few patches, so all the Throne and Liberty fanbase can look forward to coming back and having a big cry and flaming me in the comments for having an opinion. Star Trek Online is floaty and weird, like the whole game really, and Neverwinter is a bit more fun and snappy, but you are very much restricted to lanes which you can travel in and lacks the feeling of freedom that other MMORPGs give you. But for me, Guild Wars 2 is the pinnacle of movement. It feels like a 3D platformer at times, and as I have spoken about before, adventure is a big part of why I love the game, and the movement system allows for you to get about in a speedy and fluid way, both horizontally and vertically. In many games, the addition of flying mounts often kind of void ground mounts, particularly for me because they are slower, but in Guild Wars 2 I have never felt like ground mounts were particularly slow. I am a lazy piece of shit, and so I have not finished all the achievements for the Skyscale and Griffin mounts. As I've said before, I get distracted easily, and in a game like Guild Wars 2 there is just so much to fucking do. But I think it is a testament to the selection of ground mounts available in Guild Wars 2 that I don't feel held back in any way. And perhaps I would have been more driven to complete the necessary objectives to get those flying mounts if I had, but I haven't. The first mount that probably all new players experience is the Raptor, and I think for that reason it will always hold a special place in most people's hearts. This is the first time that you encounter the excellent animation work as you manifest your mount and see the fluid movement as it pops into being, coupled with the little noise it makes. As it stands idle, it moves and shifts and lays down, and everything is enhanced by the sound of the leather harness rubbing underneath you and its tongue flopping to one side. the mounts all feel like they have more character than in any other game. On a movement level, the Raptor instantly feels swift as it paces off into the open spaces, its special ability being that of leaping forward vast distances, which coupled with its fast stride really feels like you are eating up the miles and deftly navigating the open hills and savannas, like you are blasting about on a living dirt bike. The fact that the Raptor doesn't just turn on a dime and has a bit of a turning circle further adds a realness and a sense of weight to it, unlike in other games. Staying with the analogies of motorbikes, one of my favourite mounts in the game is the skimmer. Now obviously its closest analogue would be something akin to a hovercraft, being that you literally hover off the ground, and there is a sense of inertia as you kind of drift around corners and gently come to a gradual stop. Obviously there is great utility being able to speed across the surface of any of Tyria's beautiful bodies of water, but there is something about this flat, wide beast that to me just feels like I imagine it feels to cruise on one of those big touring bikes. There is also nothing I enjoy more than just gliding off a cliff and floating down to the ground. If you take the time to unlock the mastery for it, the skimmer also becomes a submarine, allowing you to fly underwater at speed, something that I have started but rather predictably haven't finished yet, a recurring theme. The Springer looks kind of stupid, but perhaps provides some of the greatest utility for adventuring and exploring outside of the sky scale. You can hold down the jump button and charge the Springer's leap and then power yourself up into the air vertically. When you see something glinting at the top of a mountain, it feels good to overcome the challenge by hopping your way up there one ledge at a time. I know the devs obviously meant for me to find my way up there through these very means, but it always feels like I have kind of pulled one over on them, like I have kind of gotten somewhere that I wasn't meant to. The Jackal is another mount that to me handles a lot like the Raptor but has a blink rather than a long jump. But this is specific to its environment and allows you to blink through shifting sand portals and access certain places inaccessible to other mounts. The two airborne mounts essentially cover two modes of flying, and if we are still making analogies with modern day vehicles, then the Skyscale is kind of the helicopter, allowing you to hover in place, and the Griffin is your fast and nimble glider, using momentum to surge into the sky and dive like a fighter jet. I've watched some people online doing some incredible things with the Griffin, and it is truly impressive to behold. Just for clarification and to keep with consistency, it will not surprise you that I have not unlocked either of these mounts, even though the Skyscale is technically easier to get than ever with the release of the Secrets of Obscura expansion. Shame. And to round out, the old new kid on the block is the Warclaw. I say old because it used to just be the mount that you would use explicitly in World v World PvP, but with the latest expansion, the Janfear Wilds, the Warclaw got a new lick of paint and a bit of an upgrade, and now has sort of become the Swiss Army knife of Guild Wars 2 mounts. It can perform double and triple jumps in mid-air, and the jumps also cover quite a distance, and it doesn't take full damage, so you can throw yourself off anything no matter how high. You can also launch yourself up things, so in a way it has replaced some of the utility of other mounts like the Raptor and the Springer, but with a few other abilities thrown on top, allowing you to harpoon things from on top of it and use its ability to sniff shit out for discovery purposes. The only bad thing I will say about the Warclaw is that it has a fucking gitty fat head. There, I said it. There is an article on the Guild Wars 2 website by Roy Kronecker about the joy of movement and how it was considered when developing the mounts and how they played a key part in informing how other parts of the game were developed alongside them. We wanted mounts to feel like toys that are enjoyable to use, and toys to explore the world in new, fantastic ways. Just as gliding filled a role that didn't exist before, mounts are capable of impressive moves that your character can't perform on their own. Each movement ability shines when tackling a different type of terrain or obstacle. Because of these design principles and the way in which they were built to interact specifically with the world of Tyria, it feels like the mounts evolved in that world for their environments, which gives a sense of things fitting in and feeling natural within the world you inhabit. In the same article, Roy also says, During testing, we found that manually dismounting to attack foes felt clunky and bad. We developed engage skills, offensive skills that allow your mounts to engage in battle, for an awesome smooth transition between riding and combat. You can ride straight up to enemies and use these skills to damage them, setting you up for battle, or you can aid allies as you dismount. Which is an example of how Guild Wars 2 incorporates utility into their movement systems and creates a flow from one mode to the other. Seeing a group event happening in the distance and then bounding towards it and launching my Warclaw into the middle with an attack and coming up fighting and dodge rolling feels great. Mounting up afterwards is also fluid, and once you keybind your different utility mounts to different keys, you can just flow between your Raptor to your Skimmer, into your Springer and back into your Raptor without ever stopping moving forward. The concept of flow applies to the landscape and the game modes itself. The world is littered with time trials, races and jumping puzzles, as well as hidden areas and collectibles which encourage you to use everything in your movement utility tool belt. Time trials are something that I am currently working through but making slow progress at, because I kind of find them so fun I sort of get stuck playing the same trial over and over in order to try and shave seconds off my time. It also introduces you to another mount, the roller beetle, which is purpose built for ground racing. You have to get through a course of checkpoints and you can drift around corners and boost your speed like a nitro. It is a little bit more uncontrollable than other mounts, but that is where the replayability comes from, as you learn the best lines to take through the course to complete it at the fastest speed. And these time trials are linked to races that will take place every half hour or so, and other players can assemble and then compete with each other to see who can finish first and receive prizes for doing so. And these races are all over Tyria for a number of different mounts, not just the roller beetle. And when you are not mounted, you can take part in jumping puzzles, which are also littered throughout the land and also provide a similar just one more go feeling as you fall down and try again, because each time you get a little further and you think, I can do this, I can make it over this next bit and beyond. It is both infuriating and gripping at the same time. I know there are jumping puzzles in other MMORPGs, notably Final Fantasy XIV, but I really think that the responsiveness of movement in Guild Wars 2 is what makes these jumping puzzles feel good. Like, I can't imagine trying to do stuff like this in other MMORPGs. Now, of course, much of these opinions are subjective, and indeed many people will probably absolutely fucking hate jumping puzzles, but apart from a few bits, I understand that these puzzles don't really lock too much content behind them, meaning that if they ain't your thing, you can just ignore them. And the way they are naturally woven into the landscapes of Tyria means that they are natural and unobtrusive. They are not taking up space that could be used for something else, because they literally exist in the same space as something else simultaneously. The last thing I'll mention, just to make sure I cover off everything, which might be a bit overlooked bearing in mind the embarrassment of riches provided by the mount system, is that everyone has a personal glider. So you can jump off mountains and use that to either glide to other points of interest or save yourself from falling to your death. It has a sort of stamina bar which recharges when you are not using it, and you can catch up drafts in order to raise yourself up to prolong your gliding. So, in conclusion, I think that all elements of Guild Wars 2, from the player movement and dodge rolling to the varied utility and enjoyable feel of the mount system, to the land itself designed to give every player the opportunity to use the tools of movement to explore and adventure in a world as tall as it is wide, is the true magic of Guild Wars 2. In recent years, World of Warcraft has introduced dragon riding, and it has given retail a new lease of life in my mind. And many people have pointed out that they have kind of copied the Guild Wars 2 Griffin mount with how it works. And I really enjoy the dragon riding, but I think that it does speak to how good Guild Wars 2 do it, that another objectively more successful game has chosen that element to copy. But whereas in World of Warcraft it kind of really negated any of the land mounts for anything other than collecting, Guild Wars 2's original set of mounts still hold up, and even if one mount make them all slightly redundant, they still feel good to use, and that is the joy of Guild Wars 2. The joy of movement. Thanks for watching. I always enjoy yapping about Guild Wars 2 and I hope you enjoyed it, and tell me below in the comments your memories of moving around Tyria. If all goes well, my next video should be about World of Warcraft, as I need to wrap up my feelings about classic and retail versions, and I have way too much footage taking up space on my hard drive, so click the bell and keep an eye out.